What's wrong with Christianity? Is it working as advertised, or actually a massive failure? I'm Jerry Palladino with some thoughts on the subject. I'm Jerry Palladino, international recording artist, singer, songwriter. On this channel, we emphasize the richness that Jesus of Nazareth brought into our world and share tips and insights into how to navigate this crazy upside-down world 2,000 years after his visit. Take a second to subscribe below to be alerted to constant new material. And stick around if you're troubled by what Christianity is doing or accused of doing these days on the world scene. According to what the Bible teaches, Jesus was God's plan to save humanity. So why hasn't that worked? Why are we not saved? 2,000 years ago, Jesus of Nazareth came to earth, worked miracles, loved the unlovable, and announced that the kingdom of heaven was being launched with his coming. For a few short years, he worked intimately day and night with a small group of followers, showing them details of how that kingdom was to work, told them to preach that message to the world, and then exited our earth to return to his Father's side. Scholars teach that the whole Bible points to his coming to do just what he said he came to do: initiate God's reign on our earth as it is in heaven. Yet our earth remains a mess, and those who proclaim the name are being blamed for many of the world's growing problems. What's gone wrong? Why hasn't it worked as advertised? Actually, it did work for a long time. It got off to a great start with the early church, the first believers. It wasn't perfect, it had its problems, yet it worked pretty well. So well that they eventually won the incredulous Roman population over to their belief system. How was that? It's been credited to being due to their love for each other, and their love for those whom they lived and shared the good news with. And it was anything but fun in those days. It cost them. They were social outcasts, ostracized, lost family and friends. They were hated and scorned by society, called antisocial for not joining in public events, usually because those events were in the name of some pagan god. And they were labeled traitors for their allegiance to some other king than Caesar. They suffered persecution and even martyrdom throughout their history. Being unpopular was part and parcel of being a believer. Yet they persisted. And what finally won the Romans over and changed their reality in those days? It was how the Christians lived. That was the key. How they loved and cared for each other and others. Like they're taking in abandoned, unwanted babies left to die. Rome's answer to population control. It was their care for the sick, even caring for those not their own during a couple of crippling plagues that Rome suffered, when flesh and blood relatives left family members behind to die while fleeing what was happening in their cities. And it was how they died in the arena for their beliefs, for what they had found in this Jesus of Nazareth. There's a long list documenting all of that in a great book I'd like to recommend here. It's called The Triumph of Christianity: How the Jesus Movement Became the World's Largest Religion, by historian Rodney Stark, which analyzes in great detail what the world was like in those days and how it all changed on that first Christmas Eve. It traces the setting in which the seed of Christianity was planted, how the Jesus Movement started and expanded, how it was persecuted, and how eventually it became the most favored religion of the Roman Empire when the Emperor Constantine converted to the faith. It also addresses how the Jesus movement at that 300-year mark began radically changing, in some ways for the good and in some ways for the bad. Did you know, for instance, that for the first 300 years of Christianity, there were basically no church buildings or holy structures where believers gathered? People met mostly in private homes and public and private spaces to worship, pray, fellowship, and to share the scriptures. So where did that come from? How did church buildings become part and parcel of the Christian story?